Was King David a narcissist? It's a question that cuts through thousands of years of history, challenging our perception of one of the Bible's most celebrated figures. We know him as the shepherd boy who felled a giant, the poet king who wrote psalms that still echo in our hearts, a unifier of a nation. His image is cast in marble, a symbol of courage and divine favor. But there's a darker side to the legend, a story of lust, abuse of power, and cold-blooded murder. This isn't just an ancient tale of moral failure. It's a case study in a modern psychological phenomenon known as the Bathsheba Syndrome. It's a condition where power and success become so intoxicating that they chemically alter the brain, stripping away empathy and clouding moral judgment. To understand the man who would become king, we must first understand the boy he was. David's story begins not in a palace, but in the lonely pastures of Bethlehem. He was the youngest of 8 sons, overlooked and forgotten. While his brothers were being considered for greatness, David was sent back to tend the sheep. This early life of solitude and insignificance forged a deep well of resilience within him. Alone under vast, starry skies, he cultivated a rich inner world. This isolation wasn't a punishment. It was a crucible. It taught him introspection and a profound reliance on his own strength and faith. This is the psychology of the underdog, a mindset that fuels ambition and a relentless drive to prove one's worth. The forgotten shepherd boy was quietly becoming a leader, a strategist, and a survivor, the very qualities that would propel him to the throne. Fast forward several years, the shepherd is now a king. The underdog has won. He sits on the throne, his enemies defeated, his kingdom secure. But success is a dangerous drug. Neurologically, the brain of a powerful leader can begin to change. Chronic success can lead to an overproduction of dopamine, creating a feedback loop that rewards impulsive, risk-taking behavior. It can also dampen the activity in the parts of the brain responsible for empathy and risk assessment. This is the heart of the Bathsheba Syndrome. One evening, from the rooftop of his palace, David sees a woman bathing. Her name is Beth. In that moment, a switch is flipped. He doesn't see a person, a wife, a neighbor with her own life and her own story. He sees an object. Something to be taken. This isn't just lust. It's a profound sense of entitlement, born from unchecked power. He has become so accustomed to getting what he wants that the very concepts of no and wrong have faded from his reality. This is a classic example of what psychologists call moral disengagement or process, where an individual convinces themselves that ethical standards do apply to them, allowing them to violate their own moral codes without feeling self-condemnation. He sends for her, and she comes. The act itself is a quiet, devastating abuse of his authority. The king who once fought for his people now preys upon them. The corruption is complete. The affair results in a pregnancy, a complication that threatens to expose the king's hypocrisy. What happens next reveals the terrifying depths of David's moral decay. He can't simply confess. His power, his reputation, and his very identity are on the line. So, he orchestrates a couple. First, he tries manipulation. He summons Bathsheba's husband, Uriah, a loyal and honorable soldier, from the front lines, hoping he will sleep with his wife and unknowingly claim the child as his own. But Uriah's integrity is an inconvenient mirror to David's own corruption. He refuses to go home while his comrades are still at war. Uriah's honor becomes his death sentence. David's next move is pure, calculated evil. He writes a letter, carried by Uriah himself, ordering his general to place Uriah in the fiercest part of the battle and then withdraw, leaving him to be killed. A signed and sealed execution order delivered by the victim. To commit such an act and then continue to rule, to judge, to lead worship, David must have engaged in extreme psychological compartmentalization. It's the ability to wall off parts of one's life, to hold contradictory beliefs and behaviors without cognitive dissonance. He functions as a king, a husband, a father, while the knowledge of his crime is locked away in a dark, sealed chamber of his mind. He has fallen into the psychopath trap, where one lie begets another, weaving a web so thick he can no longer see the light. For almost a year, David lives with his secret. He marries the widowed Bathsheba, and their child is born. On the surface, life goes on. But the guilt, buried as it may be, festers. Then, a man arrives at the palace. The prophet, Nathan. He doesn't come with accusations or fire and brimstone. He knows that a direct confrontation would only activate the king's powerful ego defenses. Attacking a powerful man head-on is futile. You must disarm him first. So, Nathan uses a brilliant psychological technique. He tells David a story, a parable about a rich man with many flocks, who steals the one precious lamb belonging to a poor man to serve it to a guest. As David listens, he isn't thinking of himself. He's projecting. Projection is a defense mechanism where we attribute our own unacceptable feelings or motives to another person. The story bypasses his hardened defenses and taps directly into his long-dormant sense of justice to vary a justice he once embodied. David is enraged by the injustice in the story. He stands and declares that the rich man deserves to die. His moral compass, for the first time in a long time, points true north. It is in that moment of pure, righteous anger that Nathan delivers the final, devastating blow. He points his finger at the king and says, "You are the man." The walls of compartmentalization crumble. The projection collapses back into himself. The story wasn't about a rich man and a lamb. It was about him, Uriah, and Bathsheba. The illusion is shattered. This is the moment of truth, the pivot point on which David's entire legacy turns. How would a true narcissist react? They would deflect. They would blame Bathsheba for tempting them. They would accuse Nathan of treason. They would find a scapegoat, deny the facts, and paint themselves as the victim. A narcissist's core is too fragile to ever admit fault. But David does not do this. His response is immediate and absolute. Es simply, I have sinned against the Lord. There is no excuse, no justification, no one else to blame. In the aftermath, he pens Psalm 51, a raw, unfiltered confession. It's a masterpiece of repentance, a desperate plea not for the restoration of his kingdom, but for the purification of his heart. Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me. This is the key difference. While his actions were born of power-induced corruption, his core character was not that of a narcissist. He was a deeply flawed man who fell catastrophically, but he was not so far gone that he couldn't find his way back. David's story isn't a neat and tidy fairy tale. It is a messy, brutal, and painfully human account of how power corrupts, but also how true strength isn't found in being flawless. It is found in the brutal honesty of self-confrontation, in the willingness to be broken, and in the profound courage it takes to say, I was wrong. The ultimate lesson from the king's fall is that the most heroic thing a person can do is not to slay a giant, but to face the monster within themselves. Thank you for watching. If you found this analysis interesting, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more deep dives into the intersection of history, psychology, and faith.